Revealed. How a billionaire heir's disguised life as a simple employee sparked an unexpected, life-changing crisis. Ethan Harper stood at the factory gates, the morning sun gleaming off the metal like a fresh start. To the world, he was just another factory worker, a dedicated soul providing for his single mother and bright-eyed little sister. But inside he wrestled with a staggering secret, one that could alter the very fabric of the close-knit community he adored. Unknown to his co-workers, he was the heir to a billion-dollar fortune, living a life of humble authenticity, escaping the choking expectations of wealth. The town buzzed with talk of layoffs as whispers of the factory's closure spread, igniting fear and frustration in every home. Ethan felt their despair seeping into his bones. He organized potlucks, weekend fishing trips, everything to keep spirits high. Yet deep down the fire of worry burned. How could he lose this community he fought so hard to become a part of? He listened to their fears, hearts racing as he often found himself staving off tears, for their struggles mirrored the turmoil brewing inside him. His nights were filled with planning, rallying his friends around the idea of saving their jobs. He stayed awake, scribbling notes and devising speeches, bonding with the crew over shared stories of family and hope. They'd laugh about summer barbecues and mourn over lost jobs. And through it all, Ethan cautiously masked his privilege, afraid they'd see him as something he wasn't. It was his burden, a weight he carried in silence. Then life twisted cruel and fast. A family crisis struck. His mother fell ill at the worst possible time, drawing attention like a moth to a flame, the very spotlight he sought to avoid. The factory and their plight suddenly became intertwined with the health of his family, and misunderstandings began bubbling to the surface, threatening the bonds he forged. News of his mother spread like wildfire through the gossip-laden streets, and with it, suspicions and resentment began to fester. Amidst the turmoil, Ethan remained stoic, yet inside, he felt the pounding of his heartbeat in his ears. Could he reveal his truth, that behind the blue coveralls and grease smudges lay a life of unspeakable wealth? Or was it better to remain the sturdy pillar of support that everyone adored? The clock ticked toward the town hall meeting where he'd have to confront doubts and fears head-on. Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Here he stood, heart racing, surrounded by familiar faces, people who extended a hand when times were tough, who had become family. As he began to speak, the air shifted. Silence fell, heavy with anticipation. Eyes fixed on him. Would they see him for who he really was? His mind reeled as vulnerability washed over him. Everything he built staked on this moment. Would the truth shatter their world? Or could it heal the wounds hidden beneath the surface? As he took a deep breath, every ounce of him screamed for honesty. Yet the fear of breaking their trust clawed at his chest. Families were at stake. Lives. With his heart pounding like a drum, Ethan faced them. What would happen when he finally unveiled the truth? Would they reject him? Or could they find a way to rally together once again? As the room held its breath, the stakes couldn't be higher, and the path ahead remained uncertain. But it was a heart-stopping moment that would change everything. Ethan gulped, feeling the weight of 1,000 hopes resting on his shoulders. He opened his mouth to speak, the words almost tangible as they danced on the tip of his tongue. I need to tell you all something. The room, once filled with murmurs, now hung on that thin thread of sound, an aching silence wrapping around his heart like a tight noose. He could see the faces staring back at him, some hopeful, some anxious, and a few like Jack from the assembly line, with barely concealed skepticism. Ethan had always tried to embody the grit and resilience of the people around him, but now, standing here, staring into their earnest eyes, he felt like a hollow shell. Things are tough, he began, his voice wavering. And I know that you're scared. A few nods encouraged him. I want you to know that I care about every single one of you. This community means everything to me. A murmur of understanding rippled through the crowd. Ethan took a breath, his heart pounding louder now. We've been talking about saving this factory, about coming together. But there's something you don't know about me, something I've kept hidden. As he searched their faces, an odd mix of fear and anger flickered in Jack's eyes. "What are you saying, Ethan?" he challenged, crossing his arms. "Are you going to throw in the towel? Give up on us?" "No, that's not what I mean," Ethan urged, a tremor creeping into his voice. "I want to fight for all of you, but I can't do it alone anymore. I need to be honest. What's holding you back?" The words flew out of his mouth before he could stop them, yet they echoed in his mind with alarming clarity. Ethan clenched his fists, his secret clawing at him. "I am not who you think I am. I'm not just a factory worker." Before he could finish, someone shouted from the back. "Then what are you?" The challenge reinforced the doubt swirling in the air. A wave of anxiety hit him hard, and for a moment he froze. This wasn't just his revelation. It was a fracture in his community. He could feel the heat of their expectations, and in that very instant, he realized how much he'd come to love them and how hard it would be to shatter the image they had of him. Taking another deep breath, he pushed on. "I'm Ethan Harper, the heir to the Harper fortune." A stunned silence enveloped the room. Faces transformed from curiosity to shock, then confusion. "You're kidding, right? This is some sick joke," Jack spat, disbelief twisting his features. Ethan could see the cracks forming in the bond he cherished. "No, it's true," Ethan rushed, raising his hands in a desperate plea. "I've been living here, working alongside you all because I wanted to understand the struggles faced in our community. I wanted to be a part of this life, this family. But it's all crashing down around us." "What's crashing?" someone cried from the midst of the crowd. "You're rich. You can bail us out." Ethan felt the heat scorching his cheeks. "I never wanted that. I just wanted to help us all fight this together with dignity." Tension fused with disbelief and anger, and he saw trust flickering like a candle about to go out. The shared camaraderie they'd nurtured began to unravel. As the crowd murmured and gossiped among themselves, Ethan stood there knowing he had bared his truth, but fearing that it might cost him all he'd come to hold dear. Had he sacrificed their trust for his honesty? The moment felt interminable, fueled by the wavering loyalties and questioning gazes littered across the room. Ethan's heart raced as he fought against despair. "Please," he said, voice cracking. "Let us find a way together." Would they listen? Was it too late to mend what had broken? Could the community he'd cherished truly forgive the deception that draped over his past? As he stood waiting, a voice broke through the tumult, daring to ask the question that loomed over them all. "What's the plan, billionaire?" And just like that, the narrative shifted. Ethan knew he had to craft an even bolder vision if he wanted to regain their trust. But could he? Would they give him the chance? With every soul before him, he sensed a crossroads looming. Either a path toward unity or further division lingered just ahead. The way forward was murky, but one thing was clear: the stakes had never been higher. A wave began to build, and with it, a chance for redemption. But did Ethan have what it would take to navigate this storm? To rewrite his own story in the midst of a community unraveling around him? Ethan felt the weight of the world pressing down on him. The challenge hung in the air, a thick fog of uncertainty. He stared out at the crowd, searching for a lifeline in their faces. Could he turn this moment around? Could he transform their doubt into hope? "Okay, listen," he said, steadying his voice. "I know I made a mistake by hiding who I am. But I'm here now, and I'm not leaving. I want us to work together to save this place, this family." He could see some faces soften, but others still remained skeptical like stone. "But how?" Jack stepped forward, his brow furrowed. "You've got money, sure. But what do you understand about our lives? You've been playing dress up while we bust our humps day in and day out." Ethan felt the sting of Jack's words. "I understand more than you think. I've seen the fear in your eyes, the tireless grind each day, the sacrifices you make for your families. I didn't come here to play games, I came to learn. I wanted to see what it was like to work, not just to watch from a distance. I wanted to feel the weight of the struggles the way you have." A whisper rippled through the crowd. Some nodded, some remained frozen in doubt. "All right then," Jack pressed, arms crossed defiantly. "If you really want to help us, what's your game plan? What are you willing to risk?" Ethan felt a spark ignite within him. This was his chance to prove himself, to extend a hand rather than hide behind his privilege. "I want to invest, no, not just financially. I want to create a fund to support our workers, to help families affected by the factory's potential closure." We can start new training programs, provide mental health support, and even establish childcare services. What makes you think we'll trust you with that? Someone shouted from the back, the unease still palpable. Because I'm not asking for your trust blindly, Ethan replied, his breath quickening. I want to lead with transparency. I'll open the books, I'll share every detail. All I ask is for you to count me in as one of you. The murmuring quieted. There was something about that last statement, something raw and earnest that cut through the skepticism hanging like damp air. Rebuild trust? Ethan continued. Maybe we can have open forums where we discuss the issues as a team. I want to hear every one of your voices. I want you to hold me accountable. If I don't deliver, then I don't deserve to stay. A flicker of hope ignited in the eyes of some. But Jack still looked uncertain, caught between disbelief and the fragile threads of hope that were starting to weave together. Look, I know it won't be easy. We'll hit bumps and there'll be days that feel impossible. His heart raced as he added, but I believe in every one of you and I believe in this community. I think we can pull together and create something amazing, a factory that stands as a beacon of strength, resilience, and hope. There was a brief silence, and then a low murmur began to bubble up. Ethan felt his heart swell, considering how much he missed the bond they once shared. You think money can fix our problems? Jack's voice rang out, less challenging now and more contemplative. No, but maybe it can give us the opportunity to start solving them together. Something shifted in the room. He could feel the energy, a crack forming in the fortress of doubt. There was confusion, but also the stirring seeds of curiosity and, possibly, trust. Let us give it a shot, one voice called from the back, and soon after another chimed in, then another. Ethan's hope swelled. They were beginning to come together, but he knew he was far from winning this battle. Each response echoed with urgency, a plea for clarity as well as an invitation for cooperation. Yet even as support began to filter in, a nagging feeling remained. Did he truly understand the fight he had chosen? Or was he flinging himself into a storm he couldn't navigate? As the crowd gathered closer, ready to discuss the next steps, Ethan took a deep breath, knowing this was just the beginning. But the true test had yet to come. How would his past influence his future? And could he shape a new identity that truly belonged with these hardworking individuals he now called family? He stole a glance at Jack, who was studying him intently. We'll see if you really mean what you say, Jack muttered, still holding his skepticism firm. And that's when it dawned on Ethan. Trust isn't just given. It's built brick by fragile brick, until the walls can stand against any storm or crumble under doubt. Would he have the strength to build? The night loomed ahead, a chapter yet unwritten, filled with uncertainty and promise. The atmosphere was thick with anticipation as Ethan stood at the front of the room, facing those who held their skepticism close like a shield. He could feel their eyes, some hopeful, others still wary. The weight of their expectations bore down on him, but he squared his shoulders. This was the moment he needed to own, to prove he wasn't just a passing figure in their lives. Okay, so where do we start? Ethan asked, his voice steady, but with a pulse of urgency beneath. He stepped forward closer to the crowd. I'll need your help. I can have the funding, but without your knowledge and input it won't go far. Jack finally uncrossed his arms, the tension easing slightly from his brow. Consultation isn't the same as trust. We've had plenty of outsiders deal with us in the past. What's to stop you from backing out? Ethan gestured to the whiteboard beside him, blank and waiting. Let us talk about what you need. Let us make a list together. I want to see what matters to you personally. I want to understand your vision. At that moment there was a rustle in the back. A woman named Maria, who had kept to the shadows for much of the evening, raised her hand. Her voice, though soft, cut through as sharp as a knife. What if we say we agree? How will you ensure this doesn't just vanish like the promises we've heard before? The room quieted, all eyes shifting to Ethan, awaiting his response. I promise, he said firmly. This was his moment of truth. If we set up a committee together, workers from all departments, not just management, I will abide by any decisions made. This isn't just about my vision. It's about all of us. I will be accountable to you. He saw small nods, even a trace of hope flickering in Maria's eyes. She was a single mother, juggling 2 jobs and schooling, just like many others in the room. Her struggles resonated deeply with him. And if we fail? Maria pressed, a threat of vulnerability hidden in her question. Ethan inhaled deeply. This is no dream, and failure is part of the journey. But if we fail, we do it together. I won't cut myself off from this community, I promise you that. The crowd was starting to breathe differently now, the air shifting, filled with apprehension but also tentative optimism. Conversation sparked among them. His words seemed to ignite a flicker of collective resolve. Let us build something real, someone called out, and then another voiced agreement. The momentum was shifting, and Ethan felt buoyed by it, a release of tension in his chest. Still, Jack's eyes were narrow, and Ethan could sense the man's deep-rooted fears. Talk is cheap, Jack said, his tone more curious than combative. What's the first step then? Ethan thought for a moment, his heart racing. To take a leap of faith. We all meet tomorrow. And yeah, maybe I'll pitch in with a round of coffee and donuts to sweeten the deal. He smiled, a first tentative step toward lightening the atmosphere. Jack chuckled, a hint of warmth cracking his armor. You better hold up to that. As laughter dappled the room, Ethan felt a rush of relief. It wasn't complete acceptance yet, but it was a crack in the wall, a sign of something growing. Yet beneath this blossoming optimism, the question lingered: how long would this newfound trust last? The shadows of his past still lingered like distant thunder, threatening to re-emerge. That night, Ethan lay awake, overwhelmed by the day's whirlwind of emotions. The fear that haunted him wasn't simply about failing to connect with the workers. It was the very essence of who he was, the fear that the truth of his background would ultimately rip apart whatever fragile bond they were forging. Morning broke with a soft glow, illuminating the doubts still circling in his mind. Would they still accept him when they discovered his truth? He glanced at his phone, the calm before another storm brewing in his gut. A message from his father flashed on the screen, reminding him of his responsibilities back in New York. The duality of his existence weighed heavy. Could he tackle the storm he started? Or would the currents of his past pull him under? He took a deep breath, knowing that by facing either decision, he was on the edge of another revelation waiting to unfurl. Ethan stirred out of sleep with the sunlight filtering through his window. The day he had been waiting for had finally arrived. He could almost feel the energy pulsating outside, an electric current of possibilities wired into the community he was desperately trying to engage with. Yet, as he got ready, the specter of his father's message loomed over him. The responsibilities that had dragged him back to New York were sharpening their claws, waiting to pounce at any moment. He arrived at the community center early, intent on creating an atmosphere of warmth and trust from the start. As he entered, the smell of brewed coffee greeted him, a welcome companion as he unloaded boxes of pastries and donuts. He arranged everything neatly on the table, hoping the simple act of sharing food would help melt away barriers. One by one, people began arriving. At first, there were only a few stragglers, exchanging glances while pouring coffee and staring down the pastries as if they could sense ulterior motives. Maria was among them. Her expression was cooperative yet calculated, her gaze scanning the room, searching for signs of deception. "Morning, Maria," Ethan said with a smile, partially masking his nervousness. She nodded. "Morning. You ready for this?" Ethan felt a flutter in his stomach. "Ready as I'll ever be." He poured her coffee, carefully observing her eyes soften just a fraction as she took a sip. Gradually the room filled with more people. Jack entered last, his brooding presence filling the space. He surveyed everything before resting his eyes on Ethan. "Coffee looks good," he said. A subtle acknowledgement of Ethan's effort. As the small talk began to flow, Ethan gathered everyone's attention with a simple, "Thank you all for coming today. I think we should kick off with what this means for all of us. What does this change look like to you?" Voices rose, each one stepping forward to share their hopes and fears. He listened intently as they wove their stories together. Some spoke of job security, others about better working conditions, and a few just wanted to feel valued again. But as he stood there, a thought nagged at him: what if his past made all of this meaningless? What if they found out who he really was? The meeting continued, but he felt an unyielding weight settle in his chest. Every laugh, every nod of agreement felt like a fragile facade hiding the truth. And then, in the middle of a lively conversation, Maria turned to him directly. "What if we just go for it? Let us open a dialogue about what's next, Ethan." Her clear determination lit a fire under him. He gripped the table in front of him. I want to be that voice for you, but I can't do it alone. Let me know what roles you want to play. Do you want to lead groups? Or would you prefer a brainstorming session first? As people discussed plans, he could feel a shift, but the ringing of his phone interrupted the excitement, snapping him back into reality. He glanced at the screen. Another message from his father, this time more insistent. Nobody wants to hear from the past. Just let it go, he whispered under his breath, but the churning in his gut wouldn't ease. Jack leaned in closer, noticing Ethan's distraction. Everything okay? Ethan forced a smile. Just family stuff. He didn't want to burden them with details that lay underneath his skin like jagged scars, but Jack's eyes narrowed, probing deeper. You sure? Because it looks like you're holding something back. Silence gripped the room, tension hanging in the balance. Ethan felt cornered, heart racing. How could he trust them with his truth when they were just starting to accept him? Maybe I should come clean, he thought, uncertainty swarming in his mind. Then he inhaled, steadied himself, and faced the crowd, a community waiting for a leader. But as he opened his mouth to speak, another message vibrated his pocket. He glanced down reluctantly, his breath catching as he read the words. Would he have the courage to face it all? Your father just cut off the funding. Make a choice or you lose everything. The smile wiped off his face, replaced by sheer panic. Would everything he built this morning, this tenuous connection, crumble away just as quickly? Ethan? Maria's voice broke through the fog. What's going on? The room turned silent, all eyes on him waiting for his response. Would he hide behind promises and shadows? Or would he reveal his truth and risk it all? And for the first time he realized that the hardest choice of all was yet to come. Ethan felt the weight of every eye in the room. He could almost hear the clock ticking, every second stretching endlessly as he wrestled with his choice. The warmth of the community center, once a comforting embrace, now felt confining. Panic flickered in his chest like a candle about to be snuffed out. Okay, listen. He began, the tremor in his voice betraying his confidence. He ran a hand through his hair, trying to regain his composure. Things have changed. I didn't come here just to talk about how we can improve the community. There's something vital you need to know about me. Maria's brow furrowed as she stepped forward, her posture revealing concern mixed with curiosity. What do you mean? Last week I got a call from my father, he continued, glancing briefly at the group's faces, searching for understanding in their features. I didn't want you to know this, but he's withdrawn all funding for this initiative unless I agree to certain conditions. Murmurs washed through the room. The sense of hope they had built together was suddenly threatened by his admission. The smell of fresh coffee and pastries felt far away now, replaced by a rising tide of uncertainty. Jack crossed his arms, his eyes locking onto Ethan's as if trying to read his soul. What kind of conditions? Ethan hesitated. He wants me to align the project with corporate strategies, focus on profits over people. The words felt like knives escaping his lips, bitter and sour. I was hoping to create a genuine change, not just another business venture. But if I can't meet his demands, then we lose everything. A voice called from the back, laced with disbelief. It was one of the older members, a woman named Eleanor. Her features softened with age but hardened with resolve. You can't let him dictate what this community needs. No, I can't, Ethan said, the truth unfurling inside him like a banner catching the wind. But I don't know if I have the strength to fight back. What if I fail you? Silence again blanketed the space, the weight of his admission echoing louder than any words. He could see the disappointment creeping into some eyes, while others reflected sheer confusion. And in that moment he felt like a jigsaw puzzle with pieces missing. Could he ever truly belong among them? Maria stepped in closer, softening her stance. Ethan, you're in a position to make a choice. We need you to decide what's more important, family ties or this community. But you can't hide anymore. Her words cut through the haze that clouded his mind. If he chose to stay silent, he could keep his comfortable facade intact. But at what cost? Did he really want to retreat back into the safety of the shadows, leaving behind a fledgling community that could flourish if he fought for it? Ethan's heart raced. The fear of losing everything collided headfirst with the flickering sensation of hope that was growing among them. Yes, there's a risk, he declared, feeling the surge of determination mingling with fear. But I can't back down now. Not when there are people who believe in what we can build together. Around the room, faces lit up. There was a collective breath as if hope was contagious, spreading like a wildfire amongst them. Yet doubt still lingered, haunting him with what might come next. But Jack shifted forward, a fierce resolve in his eyes. We pitch in. Together. We'll stand by you and whoever else wants in for this fight. Ethan felt something within him shift, buoyed by their spirit. But deep inside, a question gnawed at him. Could they trust him after knowing the truth? All right, Ethan said, wrestling with this critical moment. Let us begin talking strategy, but we must stay true to our intentions. Wait, Maria interrupted, her expression catching his attention. But what happens if he comes for you? Ethan swallowed hard, trapped between the solace of their support and the impending storm. The truth loomed like a shadow right behind him. I guess we'll find out together, he said, a mix of fear and excitement bubbling in his chest. And as their conversation shifted, he felt a sense of unity foster inside that room, yet the lingering question remained. What was he willing to risk for the sake of this community? The door to his past was already creaking open, threatening to spill into his present. Would he find the strength to fully embrace his choice before it shattered everything he held dear? Ethan felt a buzz of energy in the room, a palpable surge of hope flickering through every person present. The challenge ahead loomed large, but now, together, his doubts felt a bit lighter. He looked around at the faces that had once been strangers, at their laughter and resilience, and realized that they weren't just here to support him. They were here to support each other. Okay, so where do we start? He asked, voice steadier now. Jack glanced at Maria and she nodded, signaling it was time to act. Let us brainstorm how we can pivot, Jack suggested, leaning forward. We can gather community input, identify what we really need, and present that to your father. Yes. And we can hold a town meeting, Maria chimed in, visibly energized. Get everyone involved. Make our voices louder so he can't ignore us. A warm current of camaraderie flowed through Ethan as he watched them strategize. He felt a flicker of his old self, that young man bursting with unrealized dreams. The weight of impending doom felt just a bit lighter with this newfound sense of collaboration. Let us write down everyone's ideas, he encouraged, grabbing a notepad. As he passed it around, people began to share their thoughts. Ideas came alive: after-school programs for kids, community gardens, job training workshops. Each suggestion built on the last, a tapestry of hopes and needs weaving together. As they worked, Eleanor spoke up, her voice steady and commanding. You know, Ethan, it's not just about your father's conditions. This is about us standing our ground, showing that we are worth more as a community than what money can offer. Her gaze swept across the room, meeting their eyes with a fierce nobility. Ethan felt a swell of gratitude for Eleanor, a reminder that wisdom often comes in unexpected packages. She was right. This wasn't merely a personal struggle. It was a communal fight. Hours flew by as the group shared and documented their aspirations. Laughter punctuated the air, blending with murmurs of determination. Yet, beneath the surface, the sense of urgency remained a ticking clock, reminding them that they had to act fast. Eventually, the gathering began to wind down. Ethan stood in the middle of a half-filled whiteboard, a jumble of thoughts captured in hasty handwriting. Hope hung thick in the air. But as he looked around at the smiling faces, he felt the weight pressing down again, the pressure of what would come next. Hey everyone, he said, gripping the edge of the table to steady himself. I know we've made great strides today, but I can't help thinking what awaits us once we present our ideas to him. What if he doesn't care? What if he just pulls the funding anyway? Silence swept across the group, each face reflecting the cloud of uncertainty that had formed. Maria stepped forward again, her eyes bright and unwavering. Ethan, we're not just fighting for you. We're fighting for ourselves, for our community. Even if he tries to walk over us, we'll stand together. We can make it harder for him to ignore us. A wave of determination crashed through the room once again. Ethan nodded, feeling the embers rekindle within him. He could do this. They could do this together. But still, that nagging fear held on, the fear of failure, of letting everyone down. All right, he said, steeling himself. Let's get a town hall meeting set up this week. We'll officially present what we want and how we'll make this happen. But we need everyone's voice on board. Yes, Jack shouted, raising his fist in the air. Ethan, Maria added, tilting her head in contemplation. What if we find a way to get your father's attention in a way he can't ignore? Ethan could feel a spark ignite in the room. His heart raced. This could be it. But how? What could reach a man so disconnected from the very community he was trying to manipulate? Let us put our heads together on that one, he said, resolved. As ideas began bubbling again with renewed excitement, he couldn't shake the sensation that something deeper was at play. The meeting would have to be bold, something daring. But could they really take a stand against a billionaire without risking everything? The clock ticked loudly, its hands seeming to push them toward an inevitable confrontation. Ethan's thoughts raced. Would this be the move that decided their fate? Or would it backfire? Let us see how far we can push this, he whispered to himself, knowing that the hour of reckoning was on the horizon. Suddenly, the door swung open and the chatter slowed. A familiar silhouette stepped inside. The attention turned. Ethan's heart skipped. Was it his father? Would he face the man who held every thread of his loyalties in his hands? Ethan, we need to talk, the figure said, voice firm. And just like that, the stakes rose and Ethan felt the tight grip of fate drawing ever closer. Ethan's heart raced as he faced the figure in the doorway. Dressed in a tailored suit that seemed to echo the weight of his privilege, his father looked every bit the powerful businessman he was. Yet Ethan, gripping the table's edge, felt something shift within him. This wasn't just a meeting. This was an awakening. Hurry up then, he said, forcing his voice to remain steady. What do you want? His father stepped fully into the room, eyes surveying the space and the gathered crowd. Each person held their breath, sensing the tension that hung like a storm cloud. Yet there was a spark of resolve that ignited in Ethan's gut. Your little meeting, his father began, a hint of disdain in his tone. I've been hearing about it. What's this, some sort of revolt? A desperate attempt to undermine my plans? Ethan felt a rush of indignation bubble up. It's not a revolt. We're trying to create something meaningful for our community. We want what we deserve. A collective murmur of agreement rippled across the room. His father regarded the crowd, their defiance glaring at him like a flash of light. If you think shouting louder will change my mind, he responded with a scoff, you're sorely mistaken. These investments aren't just numbers to me. They're business. Business. Maria's voice cut through the tension, surprisingly fierce. You think the people here are just assets to be shelved and sorted? They're our home. They're our lives. Ethan's father shifted, the hint of amusement fading from his eyes. He stepped closer, lowering his voice as if confiding a secret. And what makes you think they choose you over the stability I provide? This is a losing battle, son. Ethan felt like he was standing on the edge of a cliff, the churning sea below urging him to leap. He wanted to scream, to fight back. But the echo of Eleanor's words resounded in his mind, a reminder that it was about more than just him. We aren't backing down, he asserted, surprising even himself with the strength in his tone. These people deserve to thrive, not just survive. We're asking for transparency, for better conditions in the community you want to control. There was a charged moment of silence. The weight of expectations shifted, and Ethan hoped this would be the day everything changed. Are you really willing to risk everything for this community, Ethan? His father asked, staring directly into his eyes. Everything we've built, everything I've provided? Ethan's breath caught in his throat. Could he really compromise that comfort? The glossy world of power and money that had always seemed so secure? But then he glanced around at the faces: Jack, Maria, Eleanor, full of hope, resolved to stand with him. Yes, he heard himself say, each word a newfound warrior's armor. I would risk it all. Because I refuse to let this place die in the shadows of profit-mongering. We are worth more than just numbers on a spreadsheet. The temperature in the room shifted, a palpable tension stretching between father and son. Ethan's father smirked, but there was an edge to it. You think you can make me change what I've planned? That you can rally these people against me? Jack stepped forward, fists clenched. We can and we will. You underestimate the power of a united community. The challenge hung in the air, emotions crackling. Ethan's father folded his arms tightly, his expression shifting from amused to contemplative. Then he finally said, his voice low yet steely, "Let's see just how far you're willing to take this. But don't pretend there won't be consequences." Ethan's heart beat like a drum, a mix of exhilaration and trepidation flooding him. Was this the moment they'd turn the tide? Or was it the beginning of a war he couldn't win? "Where do we go from here?" he asked, the question lingering between them like a spark waiting to ignite. As his father turned and walked toward the door, Ethan felt as if the earth beneath him was shifting. The path ahead was fraught with uncertainty, but for the first time he felt the thrill of possibility. Would they triumph? Would his father be pushed to reconsider? Outside, the community awaited answers. And back inside, Ethan knew they had to push forward, no matter the cost. What could he do to rally the people and challenge his father's own ambitions? The stakes were higher than ever, and Ethan felt the silent prayer on the tips of his fingers. It was time to strategize. The battle wasn't over, it was just the beginning. Ethan stood there, the weight of his father's words still heavy in the air, swirling around him like an impending storm. The door clicked shut behind his father, leaving the room in tangible silence, each person staring at Ethan as if he held the wild card to an elusive victory. "What do we do now?" Jack broke the stillness, his voice raw with urgency. The crowd leaned forward, anticipation etched on their faces. Maria fidgeted, her fingers pressed against the table, urgency and hope battling in her eyes. Ethan took a deep breath. "We prepare. We need a solid plan. We can't just shout our demands without backing them up." "But what does that even look like?" Maria asked, crossing her arms. "You heard him. He thinks he is untouchable." "Maybe he is," Ethan admitted, his heart tightening at the thought. "But we have something he doesn't us. This community. We can organize. We can show him that we won't be silenced." The room buzzed with a mix of anxiety and excitement, as ideas filled the space like wildfire. They could hold meetings, raise awareness, maybe even reach out to local media. But as Ethan glanced around, he felt the pull of self-doubt creeping in, tightening like a vice around him. "Listen," he began, trying to ground himself. "There's strength in unity. We can start with small, reachable goals. Make our voices heard in ways that resonate. We can show him that we matter, that what he is doing isn't just business. It's our lives." The murmurs throughout the room began to rise, gathering momentum. "It's true," Eleanor said. "If people see that we're serious, if we create a movement instead of just noise, they'll stand with us." Ethan felt the energy shift like a wave. "We start a campaign. Petition. Something visible, something undeniable. We can reach everyone, families, friends, neighbors." Jack nodded, eyes brightening with determination. "We could host a town hall meeting. Get everyone together. Share our vision." "Exactly," Ethan said, the warmth of hope flooding his chest. "Spread the word. Let them all see that we're fighting for more than just ourselves." The night wore on as plans took shape and the group brainstormed ideas. They talked about posters, social media, door-to-door outreach. They turned doubts into strategies and fear into a flame that flickered brightly. However, as the discussions blossomed, Ethan found himself drifting, his father's parting words echoing in his mind like a warning bell. "Don't pretend there won't be consequences." Are we ready for what he might do in response? He questioned, suddenly unsure if the current momentum could withstand external pressures. "This won't just be a walk in the park. Who cares?" Jack replied, unyielding. "We're fighting for what's right. Even if it means facing our fears head-on." Ethan wanted to believe him. He felt the fire inside him grow, but a sliver of dread tugged at him. The thought of his father's wrath, of repercussions, was a cloud hanging over them. Still, he couldn't let that fear stop him. They were already starting to build something monumental, a hope that was rising against the tide of greed. "Then we're in this together," Ethan finally asserted, feeling strength in their unity. "Whatever comes next, we face it as one." The room filled with murmurs of agreement. Fueled by adrenaline and hope, they began crafting flyers, planning speeches, outlining their vision. The rhythm of solidarity drummed into Ethan's soul. When the meeting finally came to an end, as everyone began to filter out, one lingering thought echoed in Ethan's mind. How far was he truly ready to go to protect the community he loved? Ethan caught Eleanor's gaze. "We're in this together, right?" "Always," she replied with a reassuring smile. But little did Ethan know that true trials were waiting just around the corner. His father was not the only one who could play games of power. New alliances and hidden agendas lurked in the shadows, waiting to be revealed. As Ethan watched everyone disperse, a foreboding sense settled over him. What would the next move be? How far would he go to protect something worth fighting for? What devastating truths awaited them on this risky journey? The answers lay ahead, beckoning like whispers in the dark. Ethan stood in the heart of the community center, surrounded by people who had become more than just co-workers, they were family. Their faces glowed with determination, a flame ignited from shared dreams and struggles. They were ready. Now it was time to act. Tonight is the night we make our stand, Ethan proclaimed, his voice ringing with fervor. The room echoed with cheers of agreement. Hope filled the air, a tide turning against the fear that had threatened to drown them all. This was their moment. They spent hours planning their campaign, mapping out every detail of the town hall meeting. Flyers adorned with bold letters were crumpled in hands and placed on every surface imaginable. Social media posts were crafted with care, designed to rally support from not just their community, but surrounding areas too. "We won't just speak," Jack emphasized, his eyes shining with resolve. "We'll shout our worth. Show them what we've built together." Ethan nodded, feeling a warmth in his chest. Their unity was a force, a storm ready to break. He'd built them into a family over the past months now. They stood on the brink of something transformative as days passed. Excitement built, but so did anxiety. They sent out invitations, urging everyone to join. Ethan devoted his nights to perfecting his speech, yet a gnawing fear pulled at his gut. Would his father come? Would he try to crush the movement? Remember, Maria reminded them during a strategy session, this isn't just about convincing your father. It's about creating a legacy and showing our community's value. Her fierce sincerity resonated with them all. Finally, the evening of the town hall arrived. The small auditorium buzzed with chatter as attendees filled the seats, a mosaic of hopeful faces. Ethan stood backstage, pacing with nervous energy. He could almost hear the echo of his heartbeat, a countdown toward a defining moment. "Ethan, you got this." Jack's encouraging shout barely calmed him. "Ready?" Maria flashed a thumbs up as she stepped forward, her steady gaze empowering him. As Ethan walked out to the podium, silence enveloped the room, every eye on him, every breath held. Nervous energy twisted in his stomach, but he took a deep breath, letting the calm of the moment wash over him. "Thanks for being here, everyone," he began, the tremor in his voice soon giving way to strength. "We've come together today to reclaim not just our jobs but our dignity and our future. We are not numbers on a spreadsheet. We are families, friends, this is our home." The crowd broke into applause, and Ethan felt a rush of adrenaline. With each sentence he layered his passion, recounting personal stories that intertwined their lives, celebrating their resilience. "This isn't just my fight, it's ours. Together we can demand a change." A few murmurs of agreement resonated through the audience. He locked eyes with Maria and Jack, buoyed by their presence as he delved deeper into their aspirations. Positivity radiated throughout the crowd, but a sense of tension loomed as he approached the truth about his father. "But there's something I need to share," Ethan continued, his voice steadying. "You all deserve to know who I am. I've lived among you not just as a worker, but as the heir to the Harper fortune." Gasps filled the room and doubt danced in the air, but he pressed on. "I hid my identity to understand your struggles. And while my past shadows me, I'm here because I believe in this community. I refuse to let my father dictate our lives." Suddenly, a voice erupted from the back. "Are you really ready for a fight, Ethan? If you're declaring war on him, are you ready for the consequences?" Ethan's heart raced, but he held firm. "We'll face whatever comes together. This is about more than me. It's about creating a future we can all believe in." And right then hope ignited, and the crowd rallied, voices entwining. A collective roar of strength and determination rose like thunder. After the meeting, an electric buzz flowed through the air. The crowd stirred and began mingling, their spirits high. But in an instant, the atmosphere shifted as a familiar figure entered. Ethan's father. He moved toward the podium, an icy calm wrapping around him like a storm. "I heard you had some big plans, Ethan. But maybe you've forgotten who controls the purse strings," he stated, cold and cutting, sending waves of dread thrumming through Ethan. Ethan felt a chill creep down his spine, but as the crowd instinctively leaned closer together, he realized resilience had blossomed in this very moment. "I won't let you intimidate anyone here," he said firmly. "This community is stronger than your threats." Faces around him mirrored solidarity. He looked into the eyes of his father, the man who had once held all the power, and for the first time he felt unfazed. "Every dollar you try to pull away from us only strengthens our resolve," Jack shouted from the front, rallying the crowd again. The murmurs rose, affirming their collective spirit. Ethan's father hesitated. The crowd's unity was a tide higher than he anticipated. "Maybe you really think you have a chance," he sneered but backed away, his retreating figure a testament to the power of collective strength. As silence fell again, Ethan stood tall. A tide of unknown potential surged within him. "We'll keep fighting, and we won't stop until every voice is heard." Cheers erupted amongst them as they realized their strength. Their battle was only beginning, and united, they refused to back down. Ethan took a deep breath, heart full, ready for whatever was to come. This was not just a fight, it was a transformation, a legacy forged in unity. The journey would be tough, but so was the laughter shared, the tears shed, and the unwavering belief that they could rewrite their story, and that promise of change was worth everything. This was their moment to rise, and they would do it together, facing any storm ahead, refusing to let shadows define them. And somewhere in the depths of his heart, Ethan knew this was just the beginning. Now it's your turn. You need to subscribe to the channel right now so you don't miss the next exclusive stories that will inspire and ignite your spirit. Leave a like to feed the algorithm and support our community, because every click is a step closer to spreading this message. Comment below with your reactions and feelings about this journey. Your voice matters, just like the voices we celebrated today. Don't wait not even one more second. Share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this incredible transformation. Together, let us amplify the change we want to see.